Good morning, everyone. I want to begin by expressing my gratitude to Ellen Mueller, the faculty and staff of the MFA program, the 3D shop, the media center, the print shop, my mentor Kelly O'Brien, and a very special thanks to my 2021 peers. I am Darren Schneibel. I will be talking for the next 10 minutes, pretending like I'm talking about visual art, but I'm really talking about words. A master of fine arts is expected to have a way with what they say as well as what they see. Semantics dominate, even for a visual artist. Words are a frustrating technology. They are supposed to connect us, to facilitate communication, but they act more like guards who bar entrance. Specialized jargon creates classes of insiders and outsiders. I don't really trust words. They are thin and full of empty space. Only seeing can be about seeing, but I must use words as an unequal stand in for visual reality. I served 7 years in the Navy before I studied art, and I feel like spending my early adulthood in the military intelligence community significantly shaped my creative approach. Both the isolation of the open ocean and that of top secret activities, combined with a tangible connection with the experience of generations of sailors, contributed to the development of a perspective removed from contemporary culture. Later, I analyzed signals intelligence collected by satellites, which pushed my perspective into outer space. My work involved exploiting portions of the electromagnetic spectrum that are beyond our biological ability to sense. I developed an appreciation for this energy's role in shaping our reality. Out on the water, I was mesmerized by the sunlight's reflection off the endless rolling waves and the celestial twinkling that I could almost reach out and touch in the middle of an unpolluted ocean. The open water environment soaked me in a tangible connection with ancient sailors. This tie contrasted sharply with the high tech equipment I operated. I occupied opposing environments, one tying me close to the past, and another pushing me into a computerized future. I continue to explore this uneasy duality. I am called an interdisciplinary artist, but I prefer to think of myself as non disciplinary. Not disciplinary because my practice is not punishment or bound to a specific media. I make art because it makes me feel liberated, which is the opposite of discipline. It is an escape from the anxiety of popular culture. It is a way of curating my experience on my own terms. I enjoy exploring emerging technologies and established processes and materials, imagining altered perspectives and novel applications. The movement known as op art is foundational to my practice. Joseph Albers was a key figure in the forming of optical art. He analyzed how our biology detects and processes color. Albers identified color and value cues that our brains use to make sense of space and form. He found that perception is not linear or orderly, it is proportional and comparative. Later, artists like Carlos Cruz Diaz and Raphael Rosendahl developed works that manipulate the visual cues our biology relies on to create a visceral experience. This way of treating the human body as a piece of technology that has capabilities and limitations and stylistic quirks has influenced the way I experience and practice art. This approach manifests a personal narrative involving individual biology, sensing, and making sense of its environment. I also in, I am also influenced by the work of Daniel Arsham and Tom Sachs, who build familiar functional forms with unusual materials, removing them from their place in time and altering the viewer's temporal perspective. I imagine their objects are from a parallel reality or an adjacent dimension. My work presents a possibility, an environment that invites my audience to practice imagination. I want my audience to enter the environment I curate and develop an authentic individual journey. I invite others to find their way parallel to the path that I blaze. My view of humanity is from the perspective of the Voyager spacecraft, 14 billion miles from Earth, a detached product no longer under the influence of its creator, isolated, outdated, but still moving. Like me, my audience seeks refuge from social and political trends. They seek a deeper, more authentic connection with their origins and the habitat they find themselves in, outside of marketing and popular culture. My work offers a glimpse of another environment, a brief escape from the oppression of capitalism and competition. Technology is the defining characteristic of the human race. Technology is evolution functioning outside of biology. Humans from 150,000 years ago are biologically indistinguishable from us, but they seem like they must be a different species. It is technology that separates us from ourselves. We no longer evolve biologically, we evolve through technology, using our brains to propagate information outside of our genes. We use different languages, tools, materials, our way of organizing society, our governments, religions, professions, our cultures evolve. These technologies now mutate at a rate that makes humans born as little as 30 years or 1,000 miles apart struggle to relate to one another. Generations are defined by the technologies that they share in their formative years. Time does not divide people intrinsically. Technologies advancing through time separate us. When the separation created by change, would the separation created by change vanish if time is eliminated? When time is rendered irrelevant, does the true universal oneness of everything become apparent? Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha learned about this trick that time plays on us from studying a river. He spoke in conversation with his mentor Vasudeva. Quote, "Did the river also teach you this secret, that time does not exist?" "Yes, Siddhartha," Vasudeva said. Is this what you mean? That the river is everywhere at once, at its source and at its mouth, at the waterfall, at the ferry, at the rapids, in the sea, in the mountains, everywhere at once, and only the present exists for it, and not a shadow of the future." "That is it," said Siddhartha. "And when I learned that, I looked at my own life, and it was also a river, and the boy Siddhartha was separated from the adult Siddhartha and from the old man Siddhartha only by a shadow, not by substance." End quote. Time makes us believe that existence is transient, that the past, the present, and the future are separate. But it is true that the substance, the matter and space that constitutes existence remain consistent through time. I propose viewing technology as a river in the same way Siddhartha sees his life as a river. If technology is understood as one continuous phenomenon, will we not feel so far apart? Continuous like a river, always moving with new particles, but remaining within its banks and ferrying travelers to the same places. This infinite river of technology contains all of existence, all culture, and nature. Thank you, and I would be happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Darren. Just want to fill in everyone, or remind you again, the Q&A can be dropped in the Q&A section or the chat. Jocelyn wants to know, what did you think of the idea of the artist as a professional amateur? That comes from the Claire Pentecost reading we did in the class at the very beginning of the semester.
That is a good question. Thank you, Jocelyn. The professional amateur is sort of a perspective that the artist can take where they're sort of outside of accepted areas of research and study. They might not have the credentials or the education to speak on a specific topic, but they still investigate it, do research, and come to conclusions from their own perspective. I think it's very valuable, and I think that that does apply to my work. It offers new ideas and perspectives that are outside of the sort of institutional bureaucracy that produces our experts.
Billy wants to know, how did you become familiar with the work of Carlos Cruz Diaz, his fellow countryman?
I became familiar with his work through researching online, looking at op artists. There are many South American op artists. And I can't recall exactly how or through what avenue I found his work, but basically just researching optical art online.
And a follow-up to that one from Billy is, what got you interested in the ruins of Göbekli Tepe?
Göbekli Tepe. I watch documentaries about archaeology, and I'm very interested in ancient cultures with whom our connection is only through what we find, the objects that they created. There's no sort of literal description or witnesses to explain the objects that they made. So I came across Göbekli Tepe through, I'm not sure who exactly, or some video on YouTube. And it is it's, I think, around 11,000 years old, predating pottery, agriculture, even like domesticated living. And it includes megalithic stones. So it's thought to be like the oldest temple on Earth that's been found so far. So I'm very interested in what that technology meant to those people at that time, what they were doing with their objects.
That's a good answer to that question, Darren. We have two more coming in. I'll read the first one. Could you talk about the transition from wall to floor and how that translates for how the viewer experiences the work? I know you mentioned
Sure.
curate, and that to me implies editing. So there must be a sense of internal dialogue with yourself and getting a specific response from the viewer.
Yeah. I'll try to get to a piece that I can talk about that specifically. This one, for instance, this piece has a different appearance at any angle you look at it. When it's on the wall, you only really have two options, from the right or the left, or directly in front of it. You could kind of crouch down and look from a lower perspective, but you can't really get above it and look down at it. So putting these type of works on the ground opens up the entire 360-degree perspective to look at it from any angle, and it also deprioritizes any specific way of looking at it.
Cool. And then I'll read the last one. Darren, your work to me reads as though you're viewing culture from a distance. The sculptures read sometimes like artifacts of past cultures from an archaeological dig. How do you, in your practice, maintain or arrive at this kind of perspective? And this question was from Michael Banning.
Thank you, Michael. I spoke about that a bit in my talk about kind of how I spent a lot of time separated from contemporary culture. Like the years of 2009 through about 2011, I spent most of the time out on the ocean. And so I didn't have a cell phone. I wasn't like getting into social media or anything like that. Um, I had just like the water and the sky. So those years being my early 20s, I think really shaped my perspective. And being in the intelligence community, it's very isolated from even other parts of the military. So I spent 7 years in the military and the intelligence community, and that's very isolated. You can't have your cell phone at work. You don't have like access to the normal internet or anything. Um, and that was like from 18 to 25. So I think that chunk of time really formed my perspective in like a permanent way.
That's really interesting, Darren. Thank you so much. For the sake of time, we're going to cancel the next break and move straight into the last two participants. So if Alondra is ready, she can present next.
Well, we are going to need a tiny break because Alondra's going to be using the same space as me. So we will need a minute.
Okay, let's take a 2-minute break and we'll regroup at 12:52.